Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ryan Ride Mechanic channel. How the heck are you doing today? Alright, today's show. Can someone tell me why Disney parks are like, alright, everyone check your lap bars for me, check your lap bar. Ooh. Well, hold on to that. Okay. Alright, dispatch. But Six Flags parks are like, okay, come on through, come on through, come on through. Sir, do you have anything in your pockets? Nothing in my pocket. Are you sure you don't have anything in your pockets? Yeah, I'm sure I don't have anything in my pockets. We have ways of telling. I got this one. All right, well, let's talk about it.
Now get ready. Here we go.
Alright, if this is your first time here, make sure you like, subscribe, share, comment, do all that stuff. Watch another video. That does help me out. I do appreciate that sort of stuff. I really do. Alright, so my friend John over at Sun Valley Lanes and Games, remember when I did that video about how pin setters work and stuff like that? Sun Valley Lanes and Games? Not sponsored or anything. Just a buddy. Anyways, yes, he sent me an email and asked me a question recently. He says, how does Disney allow things like backpacks, hats, cups, and other loose items, on some of which may or may not fit in a pouch, or loose items on Rock and Roller Coaster when other parks refuse to allow any loose items on a similar roller coaster? So that is, I answered that email, but that was a good topic. I was like, you know what, that's something, that is a good point, because when you go to Disney parks, you're used to a scenario, or I'm used to a scenario because I go to Disney parks all the time. I can bring almost anything I want to on a Disney ride. I can sit down with hat, sunglasses on, with a handful of popcorn and a soda, and recording on my phone at the same time, and the cast members will just walk by and be like, oh, make sure you hold on to that stuff, and they will continue to send the ride out. Yet we go to smaller parks, a lot of Six Flags parks these days, and you have to go through a metal detector before you get on the ride. You can't have anything in your pockets. They might make you wait through an entire 2 or 3 hour line with not even your phone with something to do. You know, they don't put stuff up in the queue line to keep you entertained. Most people, that goes to their phone, but then they even take that away and say, well, you can't even use your phone these days. So what's the difference between the two? What happened? Why does a lot of Disney allow this and a lot of Six Flags parks don't allow this? Well, this has actually been a long time in the making to where we've come to today. A lot of the times what happens was amusement parks in general did not want you carrying objects onto the ride, whether it be hats, sunglasses, backpacks, or anything like that. And the reason is because it will fall off. And they don't want to have to deal with listening to you complain about not having your stuff for the rest of the day. Or if I have my backpack with my phone and my sunglasses and I drop it off the ride, my sunglasses and stuff are going to break, and I'm going to try to tell the park that it's their problem. I wouldn't personally, but you know how people are, right? So a long time ago they said, you know what, hey, this stuff needs to wait off the ride. It's like, okay, so they would provide cubbies or bins or something like that next to the ride to where you could just leave your stuff up there while you're out riding on the roller coaster. And when you come back in from the ride, you simply just get your stuff and leave. Now, that is the way a lot of parks still operate today. So that is a good thing, that we don't have to worry about, like, okay, you put your stuff just on that side of the station. I've heard it from plenty of your comments before. Yeah, we get on this ride, we just literally throw our stuff to the other side of the station, and then they send the train. We come back, we jump off, we get it, dodge other people throwing their stuff, and then we head off the train. It's like, great. What started happening there a lot is that a lot of people said, hey, I left my expensive sunglasses right there on top of my backpack, and when I came back, they're gone. So this is where a lot of rational people would say, well, you know what, it could have been somebody stole your sunglasses. It could have been someone that got off the other train or was getting on the other train, saw them, and just went whoop, picked them up. But actually, it's not what most people think. The majority of people think when something goes missing, the majority of people actually go that the ride operators stole their stuff. because they were gone the entire time. So who else could have done it? It couldn't have been the train that just unloaded and reloaded right behind you, or possibly even two trains that did that. It had to be the ride operator. So the parks got sick and tired of their ride operators getting blamed for stealing everybody's stuff, which they weren't. The majority of time, your stuff is just simply somewhere else, right? Have you ever done that? Come back, look in the cubby, and like, oh man, my stuff is gone. I'm not going to throw stones in a glass house because I've done the same exact thing. I've gone back, looked in my cubby, and went, where'd my stuff go? I can't find it. And I'm looking around. It's like a big bin. I'm like, it has to be here somewhere. And then I literally got the person and said, hey, can you unlock this and slide this over? Because I think my stuff is on the other side somehow. And they're like, no, it's on this side. But okay, they entertained me. Thank you very much, whoever you were. They unlocked it, slid it over, and I just stood there with my hands on my side and looking in there. I'm like, it's not there. What's going on? And then they slid it back, and they said, can you just check around again? I'm like, yeah, I'll look. Because there was a couple of leftover items in there. Not many, but there was a couple. And I looked, but for some reason, the second time I looked, like a magic trick, my backpack appeared right there. Hey, there it was. I was like, okay, that was odd. But, everyone's susceptible to this. No one's immune to this, right? But the majority of times when people say something is missing, it's simply just in a different place. It was relocated to a different place. Somebody might have accidentally picked it up and got down the pathway when they realized, oh, this wasn't my sunglasses, this wasn't my hat, this wasn't my backpack. A lot of things do look similar, especially when you're reaching in between a bunch of people and just trying to grab your thing and get out of there, right? That happens all the time. But then a different instance happens. Basically, what happened was now we started losing things off of rides. So we had that scenario. We were asking people to just put stuff aside so their stuff didn't fall off the ride. And then people would still get on rides with things, and now things started falling off the rides. It's like, okay, so what happens there? Well, when stuff falls off of the ride, you have another hazard now. It's like that object that has fallen has now become the hazard to you and everyone else around. Now, a lot of rides are very simple. There's not much to them. So if I drop something, you say, well, it's not going to become a hazard to anybody. Not true, actually. I was riding Goliath at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and when we went over the other little bunny hill, the second little bunny hill, I've told this story before, as we go up and over that little bunny hill and get some of that negative G-force in there, I watch a camera come from somewhere out of the train, comes up and it floats right above the crowd and then suddenly lands right back and actually hits me in the head. Didn't cause bleeding or anything else, but that did. It was like, ow, that actually did hurt because it was a good size camera that actually came out and hit me in the head. It starts causing injury. Well, that was actually just a delta of a couple miles per hour and a couple of feet. It wasn't too bad. It came up, slowly drifted over the train, and then landed back down on top of me from probably a good arm's length away when it came back down. Now imagine that same exact weight of equipment or piece or whatever it was now continuing to fall the rest of the 70, 80 feet, whatever it was, down and hit somebody else below on the ground. Now your delta is much higher. Now your delta is, it's now, what's that ride? I don't even know what it is. It's 55, 60 miles per hour by the time you get to that little bunny hill. So let's just say it's 60 miles per hour falling from 80 feet. That could do some serious damage. That can crack bones and things like that. Of that, a lot of parks, when they start to install rides, a lot of parks do what's called a risk assessment. The risk assessment is what happens when they take this theoretical thing that they're about to build and they simply sit there and think about and they analyze modes of failures in the rides. And they give each one a theoretical value. Like, yes, it's more than likely that this is going to happen. Yes, it's likely that that is going to happen. You start coming up with weird scenarios. The whole coach is going to come off the track. It's like, I don't think the whole coach is going to come off the track, but it's in the risk assessment. They say, well, what happens if the whole coach comes off the track? You're going to have people that can be killed both on the track and underneath the track and all these things, and they assess it and they give it a value. It could have a high risk value. It could have a high score value to it and say like, wow, if a coach came off the track, it would be detrimental to everybody. And then that value would be really high and say like, well, the crap, we absolutely cannot have this happen. And it's like, but then what's the probability of it actually happening? And then you have to look back and you use historical data from all sorts of ride accidents, owning rides, operating rides. All that information gets pulled into this, and it says, well, although it be extremely catastrophic, the chances of it happening are extremely small. It's like, okay, that's the same thing. Like, did you ever factor in the thought that the entire lift hill that you're on might just suddenly fall over onto the ground? It's like, oh, actually, yeah, we did think of that. We thought, what happens if the whole lift hill falls over? It'd be really bad, right? What are the chances of it happening? Have you ever heard about it before? I haven't heard about it before. I'm sure someone in the comments will be like, hey, yeah, on this ride this day, the whole lift fell over. It's like, traveling ride? Maybe it's a traveling ride. These are risk assessments that are done for tons of scenarios on there. So one of the things that happens is they say, well, what happens if somebody loses a phone, a camera, a bag, or anything like that? They say, well, if it flies off, it becomes airborne at 200 feet up going 80 miles per hour, and it comes down and hits the ground and just completely obliterates onto the ground. And you go, oh, what happens if someone is standing right there where that thing is, right where it hits the ground? What happens if someone's standing there? And they go, oh, wow, that would make it really worse. That would be so bad if someone was standing in that exact spot. It's like, yeah, what's the likelihood that that's going to happen? They're like, well, people lose their phones on rides all the time. I mean, like clockwork. The people just lose their phones everywhere. Yeah, they do. Well, what about what's underneath the ride? It's like, well, the queue line is directly underneath the ride. It's like, yeah, that's bad, because now we've taken this scenario that happens all the time and put it directly over people. So this scenario that was going to be really bad and had a very high risk value to it, it's like we just made it worse because now we've put that over people. And now we said this thing is going to unfold right over people, and it's going to be bad. And everyone knows it's going to be bad, so the risk value goes up. So what do we have to do? Well, we're going to have to make sure people don't bring cameras and things like that on the ride. It's like, yeah, but if it comes out, it's going to be so detrimental. It's going to be all messed up. Like, man, how do we... It's like, okay, so that's where Six Flags and stuff went along and say, well, we're going to have to put metal detectors out there and make sure nobody has anything whatsoever in their pockets. This is the same story that you would get for loose articles coming off of people, but in some cases, like a couple of years ago on Top Thrill, where we had a metal flag plate break off the train and fall into the queue line below. Now, the train wasn't running directly overhead right over these people, it was off to the side. But the flag plate broke off and bounced off of something and then ricocheted into the queue line, where it unfortunately hit somebody and did a lot of life-changing damage to that person. So this has actually caused all the risk scores and everything else to actually go up. Everything became higher because now they have an accident they can't repeat anywhere. They have to not only look at future installations, but they have to look at past installations and figure out what they need to do. Some manufacturers have already implemented this. It's in place. They don't have to worry about it. One of the good manufacturers out there that started doing this a long time ago was Bollinger & Malibard, B&M, right? B&M, right in the manual, it states that any time the track crosses a pathway, that they need to cover the pathway on the center line of the track 10 feet out either direction the entire duration. So they started doing that. If you ever noticed, a lot of B&M rides, they come with like these big spars that stick out to the side of the track, and they form a giant net underneath there. Those are areas where the vehicle crosses the pathway. And they said, hey, we're not going to let this happen. We want all this stuff to stay with the train, whether it came off the train like a part or piece, or whether it's someone had a camera or something else on there. So the manufacturer was the first step of saying, okay, let's make sure that this scenario doesn't happen. So B&M started to make the safety envelope underneath their rides saying, hey, anytime you cross a pathway, you've got to have this. When you look at it from an aerial shot and you say this is the space where the ride crosses over and the path is underneath there, you need to protect this space, still not quite valid because things can come off, glance at angles, the way things come off of rides. It can go out either direction, still into the pathway. So it's not 100%. So the premise of the video, we'll step backwards now and say, hey, so why can't I bring all this stuff on Disney's rides? Well, let's look at a regular roller coaster compared to a Disney roller coaster. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at Tron. Tron's a great ride to look at because it is actually the most, I'm going to say, one of the most aggressive rides when it comes to this particular subject. It's probably one of the most aggressive rides that Disney has. What does that mean? It's like, okay, the vehicle comes out, it's launched, it goes out and performs a big U over what? It goes right over the pathway. It goes right over where people are standing. So if you've ever ridden on Tron before, what are some of the things you have to do? It's like, hey, you have to put your stuff in lockers, don't you? You don't quite go through a metal detector, but they tell you to empty everything out of your pockets and put it there, except for your phone. You could take your phone with you if you want to. There is actually a cubby, a little space in the vehicle right in front of you, right where you would want your phone to be. Why right where you want your phone to be? Because I want to be able to see my phone. I applaud Six Flags for trying to put their little bags on the back of the seats on like RMCs and stuff like that. But if I'm sitting in the front of an RMC coach, I don't want my phone like 4 feet away where I can't reach it while I'm on the ride. Because if I notice that thing starting to slip or the bag starting to come undone, I want to be able to grab it. Not really doable on those things. But Disney put their stuff right up in front and said, hey, it's right there. It's right underneath your chest, essentially, while you're riding. Put it in there, close the lid. The forces on our ride say that that phone is not going to bunny hop out of there, even if the lid came off. The ride's not that aggressive. So Disney said the risk is really low that if you put your phone in that pouch, even if the lid came off, it's probably not going to thump off the ride and fly out and hit somebody. What's Disney's highest risk when they cross Tron over that pathway? There's 2 risks that they have that are high. One is that something comes off the ride. That's really bad. Okay. The other one is that something comes off like your shoe. Like your shoe comes off and it falls down and hits somebody down on the pathway. Can there be pathway deterrence up underneath that? Nets, things like that? Yes, there is. So Disney has done that impact assessment, and they've said, okay, this where it crosses the pathway we know is going to be the dangerous spot. Everything you're doing from there on forward is to deal with that. In the arena, there's not too many places where you're going to have a live train crossing over another live train, so the risk is really low there as well. Typically not pulling that many out at the exact same time. So they're like, okay, that's not a big risk either. So you simply get to go through, put your stuff on the side, say, all right, I'm done with that. You can bring your phone with you once, just make sure it goes in the cubby. It's still not a big deal. We take one step further back from that and we look at the majority of Disney rides, even roller coasters. And what are the majority of Disney roller coasters? Let's look at a ride like, well, Big Thunder Mountain. It's sitting right there on my wall, right? Big Thunder Mountain. When you look at the aerial shot of Big Thunder Mountain, what's the first thing you have? You have a perimeter 100% of the way around the mountain. No one can get into the track area. What happens when that track crosses over people? Does it cross over people? No, not really, it doesn't. If it does cross over a queue line or something like that, it's in a tunnel. It's completely enclosed. There's no way things can get out down to the people below. What happens about multi-vehicles? It does have multiple vehicles operating. When the tracks cross each other, and they do cross each other, you just don't know it, again, it's in a themed tunnel. It's in a separate part. You physically can't get there. If you were standing on the track, you can't jump from one track to the other. It can't happen. Stuff won't fall down there. So, what is the risk? Well, Disney says the risk is to itself. What does that mean? Like if I drop a backpack off of Big Thunder Mountain or just any Disney ride, that backpack can get caught up in the wheel carriers, right? It'll get sucked right into here, and these wheels will stop, flat spot, you do damage to the vehicle. If you drop it down the center line of the track, what can happen? You can pick it up on the brake fin and drag it along and just start breaking proximity sensors down the track. Not great either. You do damage to the track, you do damage to the train, but your damage to life at that point of time is very, very small. It's very minimal. So it has a low risk score. So that's why they're able to say, oh, hey, look, when I get on Big Thunder Mountain and I'm holding all my stuff, they just say, oh, hold on to that stuff. Because realistically, if I drop it and it comes off the vehicle, it only impacts me. I'm going to be sitting there going, I lost my phone. Where'd you lose it? I don't know, somewhere on the ride. Can you guys walk the track later on tonight and look for it? And they'll go, yeah, we'll walk the track tonight and look for it, just like they do every night. They look for all sorts of stuff that's dropped off the vehicle, both mechanically and from guests. They do that every single night, regardless. It's like, okay, let me know if you find it. I drop something. I get popcorn all over the place. Kind of messy, but it can be cleaned up. There's plenty of critters in the park that'll clean up popcorn too. You don't even need personnel to do that one, right? Things that can happen that do affect people in a different way is, let's look at Incredicoaster or California Screamin'. I'm not sure which one it was when someone dropped their backpack out of that vehicle during the loop. Backpack fell down, dropped right on the track, and the next vehicle came along, picked up the backpack, didn't quite make the next hill, it rolled back and valleyed. Now you had people stuck there where you had to get them off with a man lift. Now anytime you get people off with a man lift, you got to get the man lift up there. They're, 30 feet off the ground at that point, somewhere right around there. That's a pretty low spot right there, but I'm going to say 30 feet off the ground. But you're talking about now you need personnel up there to unlock the restraints one at a time. Each time you do that, you have to put a belt on the person so they can connect their climbing and fall protection off. Then they have to climb out of the vehicle onto the man lift, and then they can come down. During that time, your likelihood of being injured goes up higher. That's why there's much more people during an evacuation, because anytime a ride breaks down, the safest place for you to be is in your seat on that ride. Anytime you get out of that seat or open your restraint or do anything else, your danger of getting injured starts going up higher and higher depending on your situation of where it is. Okay? The biggest place risk assessments come into play are actually during block zones, during brake runs and things like that. Son and I were at Disney, we were on Splash Mountain way back in 2020. Just come out of COVID, we were still there. We had masks on and everything, but I remember we were at the base of the main lift. I don't know which one that is. I don't know what they're called on there, but the big tall lift that goes up to the final drop. We were at the base of that one. The ride broke down right there. It's like, okay. So Disney's risk assessment is they said, wow, what happens if the boat is stopped right there and someone gets out of the boat? Now, Disney World, a little harder because you've got restraints in there. Disneyland, really easy because there's no restraints in it. You could just get up and go. They said, well, it would not be good if someone got up and got out, because that means if the vehicle started moving again, there's a chance they could slip, fall, and fall in to the water. They could get drowned. They can get trapped underneath something. It's bad, right? We don't want that happening. Or if they get up and get out without somebody knowing, they can cause all sorts of damage. They get into places that they're not supposed to be, and still that's more damage to life and limb at that point. So Disney says, okay, next to these areas where vehicles stop, we're going to line the area with pressure pads on both sides. If someone gets out, it alerts the computer system and it says stop the ride. I'm not sure if it triggers an e-stop or just a warning, but it will trigger a warning, a fault, a stoppage, and say, hey, stop. For some reason in this area, one of the pressure pads just went high. When the pressure pad goes high, it means somebody's standing out there. Even if the operators don't see it yet, somebody's out in the attraction. This is one of the reasons why when you're in Pirates of the Caribbean and dark rides like that, all the time, right next to the vehicle path, there is a set of sensors. By that, I mean they're optical, looking from one beam to another. So it's an optical sensor that runs the entire length of the ride path pretty much. And it's looking for that beam to break. Because what's happening is as it comes into one of those areas, they're looking for someone to get out of the boat and try to go take an infamous selfie with, one of the characters or something like that. Well, if you were to get out of one of those boats, which is grounds actually to be arrested at that point, not just kicked out of the park, but you're actually endangering other people, that's what the arrest will go down as. But if you actually get out and do that, you'll trip a sensor, and the sensor says, hey, stop all motion down there. It cuts off all motion and says, whoop, somebody is out for some reason. And then they have to go investigate and find out why. So realistically, the difference between a Six Flags and a Disney park letting things onto the ride is that Six Flags has done a risk assessment, but they have said, you know what, our vehicles cross pathways all the time. They do high G-force maneuvers, so it's not something just comes off the vehicle and falls straight down. It's that when it comes off the vehicle, it's going to have its own trajectory and, fling way off to the side, sometimes hundreds of feet, especially depending on how high up it is. So the area that is affected by the ride path isn't just a little tiny sliver of like 10 feet off to the side. They acknowledge that it gets bigger and bigger and bigger the bigger the ride gets. Disney, on the other hand, says all of our stuff, very low intensity. It stays very low to the ground, and we have pathways all the way around it. It never crosses anything. It doesn't cross people. So they're just like, keep the people happy, absolutely. Let them ride with their stuff, right? Only thing they don't let you ride with is a selfie stick. Like, you can't bring a selfie stick on a ride and stick it way out there. Why? Because if you manage to get it out far enough, you could impact something on the side, which could cause the stick to jab right back into you. Now, that is a hazard to yourself, so they don't allow selfie sticks on rides. Everywhere in Disney, like, I can get out, I can record with my phone, I could do all sorts of stuff, but if I pull the selfie stick out, they will right there say absolutely no way, stop. If they see you on a ride with it, because everything's video monitored, they will tell you to put it away quickly. And if they don't see you put it away quick enough, they will stop the ride, and then you are getting ejected from the park. Okay, so let's play devil's advocate a little bit. Ryan, if it's so dangerous to bring stuff on rides for a lot of rides, why would Disney continue to let their bags on rides? Like, why would you, it's Disney's point of view, why would you allow that to continue to happen? Well, really simple, it makes people happy. The less time you ask people to part from their stuff, the more time they are happy, because they don't want to part with their stuff. They don't want to set it aside. People naturally worry about it getting stolen, it getting damaged, all sorts of things. So that raises people's anxiety up. Like, I don't want that. Nobody does. So they're like, it makes people happy by allowing them to keep it with them. It improves the throughput of the line instead of having to wait for. Okay, great. A lot of us are in this other boat, right? A lot of us are not Disney people. We cross over. We've got to go put our bag or whatever in a cubby, in a bin or something like that. Think about how much time is spent crossing over, putting your stuff in there and coming back. Especially, have you ever done this one where you crossed over, go to put your stuff in, come back, and the row that you were going into, the people behind you came in and sat down like they didn't know where you were going? It's happened to me a bunch. Like, I'm sure it's happened to a lot of people out there. Like, think about all that time that's wasted during that experience. I know I've heard it a lot. This exact scenario plays out on Ghost Rider over at Knott's Berry Farm, waiting for people to go put their stuff over there and come back. I've heard hypothesis that if they just had a good locker system and redid the queue line a little bit to utilize that locker system with Ghost Rider, they could up that throughput like crazy. Like, it wouldn't be a problem. So speaking of locker, it saves money on maintenance, right? Lockers cost a lot of money to maintain. This is one of the reasons why lockers cost money in general, is because it's not just a park raking in money from you. They're like, oh yeah, this is an awesome thing. We're just making money from these people hand over fist. Actually, what it is that those individual units cost a lot to maintain. A lot of the times they're actually installed and kept up by a third-party company that's just in charge of doing that. It's not the ride maintenance guy that's down there working on lockers. It is a separate company that's in doing that. They have to pay that company to do that. And the amount of times that those lockers break down, jam, won't open, won't close, the computer screens freeze up on them, all that sort of stuff, they do nothing but eat money. So it costs a lot of money to operate those lockers. So we prefer that all the lockers are free to people. Just know when the park does that, you're paying for it in the admission price, but most people are perfectly fine with that. If you're Six Flags, we're fine with paying for it in the admission cost. Just don't charge us on the back end. No one wants to pay extra cost for lockers. How hard is that to figure out? And the last one is that a lot of the lockers are done wrong. They're not done correctly. So what do I mean by that? I've been at parks now where you have to put all your stuff in before you go get in line for the ride. And I've ridden plenty of rides where you have to put your stuff in a locker right before you get on the train. So at best, you want right before you get on the train, because that whole time while you're in line, you want to be able to communicate. It goes back to your phone again, right? You want to be able to communicate with your friends, with your other party that might be in the park. You want to be able to know what ride you're going to go to next, what the wait times look like. If you're getting hungry, let's reserve some food on the app or something like that. The park has built all this stuff to plug your phone in to keep you moving throughout the park smoothly. And then the worst thing, the park shoots themselves in the foot when they're like, oh, we've done everything so your phone can make your day this great experience, and then the first thing you do is get in line for a 2-hour ride, and the first thing you have to do is put your phone away in a locker. That doesn't work. That doesn't work at all. Not to mention, think of how much a 2-hour queue of people is holding. There's 400 people in that queue? Well, that means you need 400 lockers? Most parks don't do that, right? But if you put the lockers right before you get on the vehicles, you only need, 100? Maybe, not even that. Maybe 100 just to be safe, just so you have plenty of room for people to get on and off there. And pass-through lockers, please. Those are the best ones. Again, the way Disney did Tron, awesome. You go up there, get your card, you can put it in. I understand Universal goes one better and you don't even need a card. It's facial ID. That's awesome. And I'm sure there are plenty of other locker systems out there that people love, but the old-fashioned, hey, put your stuff in a locker at the beginning of the ride, nope. Most of us aren't going for that. Don't want to do it. Sorry. But is there anything parks can do to redo that risk assessment and make it better? It's like, yeah, they did. Well, they said nothing in there. Unless you wanted to build the ride like Disney does, where it's off in its own area, it's not forceful, it doesn't do any crazy maneuvers, and it never crosses itself or other people or other pathways or other vehicles. But that's not practical for most thrill-style amusement parks. Anyways, these are just my thoughts. I thought it was a good topic when I got that email. I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good one. Risk assessments really allow you to be safe and still keep your stuff on the rides. And that's one thing I like about Disney. I just bring my stuff on. I'm not hassled with putting it away, and that's great. I hope they always keep that up. That's a good one. And if you have to take your stuff away, I hope they do like Tron, where it's a minor inconvenience to put your stuff away before you get on the ride. Good job on that one. All right. I've done enough on this one. Like, subscribe, share, do all that stuff. Watch another video. That really does help me out. I do appreciate that. And as always, stay off the air gates. Bye. YouTube is going to love this.